Well, welcome to Church360 Members, Permission Roles, and Custom Fields, our training webinar on the new features that we've recently added to Church360 Members. My name is Peter Frank. I am the manager of Concordia Technology Solutions. I've been with our group for over 3 years now. If you've ever attended a webinar before, there's a good chance I might have been leading it. We do have a team of people who lead it, but I really enjoy doing this, so I appreciate you joining. My contact information is on the screen, and I will put it up again at the end of the webinar, so if you have any questions and you want to email me or give me a call, I always enjoy talking to customers, so please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Today we're going to be going over a couple different things. First off, permission roles. Permission roles is not necessarily a new feature, but an upgraded feature within Church360 Members. So we're going to talk about what the status quo is and why we changed it, what the benefits of the new roles are, and then we're also going to look at some of the new permission settings that we've added based on customer feedback. Next, we're going to look at custom fields. We'll just do an overview of this new feature, and this is really brand new. There's nothing like it in the application already. We'll talk about some common uses and really why we decided to add it, and we're going to look at some of the other areas that you can store data on people records and when's the best time to use each one of those types of fields. So to kind of give you some of the best practices, I know that sometimes those get a little confusing as to which is the best, and hopefully I can clear some of that up today. Let's start off by talking about permission groups. So right now in Church360 Members, or previously, you would create different permission groups and you would set the criteria for each of those groups, what they can and cannot do, and then you would create users and assign them to a group. And so you would have many permission groups and many users, but users could only be in one permission group, although you could have multiple users in that same permission group. And we thought that worked very well for quite a while. It's been almost 5 years that we've had that in there. What we started to notice, and this was often at our suggestion, is that you would have permission groups that were assigned to just one user, because as churches are becoming more and more complex and people have more and more responsibilities, the roles are a little bit fuzzier, and so it's easier to make one permission group for one person. And like I said, we suggested that to many customers. It did work out well. It really allowed you to tailor it to that individual person. But what we found is that as churches changed, as the people who worked in the church office changed, the carryover did not work as well. As we added permission groups to notes, we noticed that come up, that you would have different pastors as different permission groups, and then the notes would have to be remembered to apply to each. And so that became a little fuzzy, and we thought we had some other things that we wanted to do, and you'll see some of that today. We have some more things planned in the future, and this structure didn't really fit the mold for what we needed, and so we decided to change it. And so now we kind of flipped it around, and we start thinking about users. And you've got your user A, B, C, D, and then you can define roles. But what's great is now you can define multiple roles for a person. So you can establish these roles rather than a group, and then assign the roles to the person rather than assigning the person to the group. And you can have as many roles per person as you want. You could even have just one role for a person. Let me switch this up a little bit and show it based on individuals and actual potential permission roles. So you can see there that you've got Pastor Williams, and he's a member of the congregation. He's also a member of the staff, and more specifically, he's the pastor. So you kind of start at a high level and say, what do we have the most of here? Well, we got the most members, and some of them are staff, and more specifically, here's the pastor. Well, you look at Elder Jones, and again, he's a member, but he's not staff, so he doesn't get that permission role. And he's not a pastor, obviously, so it doesn't get that, so you create an elder permission role for him. Now, Secretary Sally, she is a staff person, but she's not a member, and she is the secretary, so you want that. And then you may have Treasurer Tom, who's a member, but he's a volunteer. He's not a staff person. And, of course, his role is the treasurer. And so you can look at each one of those and say, okay, well, what do I want all members to be able to do? What do I want all staff people to be able to do? What do I want all pastors to be able to do? And you set up those specific roles. So we'll take a look at that in the next slide. So first off, we're going to look through Pastor Williams here. He is a member, and you're going to say for members, they can see all people's information and they can edit their own profile and household. They can also see all events. That may not be how you choose to define members, and that's okay. But in this example, that's how we're going to do it. And maybe you don't allow all members to have access to Church360 members, but for those who are, that's the baseline. Well, then you look at your church staff and say, okay, well, church staff can definitely see people's information. They can edit people's information. Of course, they can edit their own profile, and they can see people's ages. That's something we'll talk about in a little bit. For events, you can see and manage events. You can review attendance. We don't want to put offerings in there because we don't want our church staff knowing who gave what. That is a very common thing. Not all churches do that, but in this situation, we're going to go ahead and say that. And then collections, you can manage smart groups. They can manage tags, calendars, envelopes. So that's something else that we'll talk about in a little while, some new things within the permission groups. But so those are two things, and Pastor Williams has both of those, but he's also the pastor. So he can see people's unlisted information so that he can go and visit those shut-ins who may not want to receive letters but do want to receive pastoral care. And he can review offerings, but that's at a global level to see the health of the congregation, not individual people. And he can also manage pastoral visits, which is not something that everyone on the staff can do. Now, what's great about roles is that it takes all three of those and says, we're going to give Pastor Williams the most amount of access that those roles allow. And so that allows you to say, Pastor Williams is unique in what he can do because no one else has that combination of member, staff, and pastors. But it still fits those defined roles. And so if Pastor Williams leaves and somebody else comes and they do not want all the same permissions, it can he can still receive those notes that were assigned to the pastor's role, and he can still see the things that he needs to see. So I hope that makes sense. We're going to take a look at it in the application in a little bit more detail in just a moment. But that's the key benefit of roles, is that you can now say you get the most access that your permission roles allow. Let's take a look at some of the changes that we made to permission roles. You'll see that those are all the different things that you can select for a role. So you've got a lot of different combinations. And we've changed them all to be just check boxes. It used to be radio boxes, but by changing them to check boxes, then we can, and we made them all positive answers as opposed to cannot see people's age. It's can see people's age. Trying to make it a little bit more standard in the language, but also in the ability to combine roles, then it's just a matter of saying you get all the check boxes that your roles allow. The new things that we added, you can see there in the green. We had requests about hiding people's ages, and so we went through and hid the dates and the years and didn't show the age wherever the age did show. And for those who are sensitive to that, that's a very important thing. I've always had something related to can see individual contribution details, but I wanted to put that on the list of some of the new because we really looked through. There's a few loopholes that our users had found, and we corrected them as we went, but we did an overall look at that again and said, okay, where can you possibly see individual contribution details, and how can we hide that from people? And so that's green because we really did revise that, and there's some different things there. And then one of the very commonly requested change was to add the different what we call collections on there to be able to manage smart groups, tags, calendars, pastoral visits, Sunday school grades, envelopes, funds, pledges. That's all separated out from everything else. And so now you can manage funds without being able to see contribution details and the like. So that is new and different. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to showing Church360 members. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. There we go. Should be switching. All right, now you can see Church360 members, and I'm on the people screen. So I'll show you where you go, and in fact, let me zoom in a little bit because I know that's probably pretty small for many of you. So I'm going to jump in here and click on the settings cog, and down below you'll see that you still have logins and roles. So we'll click on roles first. And you can see in here that the format has changed a little bit. I'm going to click on this administrator, which shows all of them. Administrators have access to everything. You cannot cut an administrator's access, and we have made this so that the role cannot be edited. And that way you always have the administrator who can do everything. But then down below you've got your different groupings, and so elders you can see can do so much, and financial secretaries can do that. And when you click on it, you can go and check those additional boxes if you need to, but they don't all show, and so that way you get a good snapshot of what the person can do rather than what they can and cannot do. You just get to see what they can do. To add a new role, you go up here and you type in new role, and it just adds it right there for you. And then you can click and edit it and change it. The colors are there for convenience if you want to kind of group them together. They don't play a big role, but that adds a little bit of livelihood to the login screen, and you'll see that in just a second. So that's how you do that. And again, as you'll see here, they're all checkboxes. Some of them can't be checked depending on what is checked. So if you can see all people's information, now you can say you can edit them. But if you can't see it, you can't edit it. So that's why that's grayed out there. Same kind of things with manage events and the like. All right, well, let's switch over here to logins. And I'll just show you this here, that it's rather different than what was there before. We now show the email address right below, what that is for their sign-in, and then you can click on here and you can see all your available permission roles, and you can say that Jeffrey Morrison is not only a member, he's also a volunteer. And you save that and it'll refresh the screen for you automatically. And now we go down here and Jeffrey Morrison is a member and he's in the volunteers permission group. So I hope that's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in at this time. I'll answer them as we get towards the end, but we're going to shift over to custom fields now. So let me click back here to people. I'm going to switch back to my presentation. All right, and we're going to move. Oops. Looks like I paused it. Let's try that one more time. Here we go. All right, now I'm going to move into custom fields. So custom fields is another one of our very popular requested items, and we've talked about this for a while on how we could implement that, and we're very excited to have it because it opens up a lot more possibilities. So to define it, custom fields are additional data fields designed to meet the needs of your church. So they are meant for your congregation, and we are going to continue to look at things that are used by all congregations, but one thing we don't want to do is clutter up the screen for people. So if you're not using something, we don't want to show it to you, and so custom fields allows us to do that. So we've added 3 types of fields. There's text fields, list fields, and date fields. And when we look through all the feedback that we got and why people wanted to have these fields, this covered about 98% of the requests. And so we're going to start with them because the other requests can be handled by one of our other fields too. We'll talk about those shortly. So if you find a need outside of one of these, then please go ahead and send us that feedback. Whenever we add something new, we always know that it's not the final version of that new thing. That once people start using it and coming up with new ideas, that we may change that. And hopefully you've seen that through things like enter attendance and enter offerings. We've made iterations to that over the years. So please be sure to send any feedback that you have. We always appreciate the context surrounding that. That helps us to make the best decisions and make the best features possible. All right, so adding custom fields. I put this in here so that if you wanted to pause the screen, if you're reviewing the video, you can pause the screen and look through this. I will be showing this to you in a few minutes. It's pretty simple where you go to General Settings, you scroll down to the bottom of the screen where you'll see the heading Custom Fields. You click Add a Field, choose a name, choose a type, choose a visibility, and that means which permission roles can see this field. And we'll talk about that in a second because that was one big reason why we couldn't go ahead and just add custom fields until we cleared up the permission roles. And then you just click Save. like I said, I'll review this all in more detail. We'll go into the application and see it, but I want to make sure that this was part of the presentation, so if you needed to pause it, you could do that when you're reviewing the video. All right, so common uses. Here are a bunch of different things that people said they really wanted to see. And more often than not, we recommended using tags for it. And we heard from customers that tags were okay for these things. They didn't always work. And there's some really good reasons for them not to work. So I'm just going to review them briefly. Elder territory, that's for saying if you have different elders assigned to groups of people. I'm an elder at my congregation. I have we call them districts there, District 2. The name doesn't really matter. You get to choose what name you have. Emergency contact, allergies, education level, school, those are great things for children's ministry or youth ministry, being able to see that. Expected graduation date, that's used commonly within our LCMS congregations for things like the youth report that gets sent to synod. Military status, occupation or title, employer, preferred method of contact, newsletter format, whether they want the digital newsletter or the print newsletter, parish register number. If you've got that big red book that many of our congregations have, what's the number of that person there? Church mailbox, we find that a lot of churches will have a mailbox assigned, and this allows them to print off that list. Place of birth, place of baptism, baptism verse, baptizing pastor, same kind of things with first communion, place of confirmation and the like, same with marriage, including who the pastor is. First visit date, you can find that individually by looking up records, but it's sometimes easier to just say this is the first date, and it'll always be the first date they attended. Location of burial, and then last one, active and inactive. Now, what we'll talk about in a second in terms of what makes the most sense for whether to use a custom field or a tag. Tags are really good for a yes-no question, active, inactive. But we put this on here because we heard from some customers that tags was not great for it because they didn't want anybody to see that tag. They wanted to be able to make it hidden whether the person was active or inactive. So we thought, well, that's a good use for it. Some of these other ones that we've got another new feature that I'll show you that was released a few months back and very quietly released. We didn't do a good job of publicizing it, and we'll show that. And that goes to things like those key life events. So let's take a look here. Whoops, forgot to add the animation. So we're going to look at the different types of data options that you've got for storing data. First off, tags, which has been a part of our application for pretty much the entire time. Tags are great for yes or no questions to say either they have this tag or they don't. They're an active member or they're not. They're a shut-in or they're not. And so tags still have a very significant role in the congregation or for your congregation in Church360 members. It is also good for one-time data, and I couldn't figure out how to describe that better. What we see some of our customers doing, and it's really great, is that they start looking at a person and they just type in words that describe them. And there's not really a great rhyme or reason to it. They may put in hobbies or skills or interests or adjectives that describe them, energetic, or anything that is a description but is not what you would necessarily call data that you would want to report on or group by or anything. It's a snapshot of the person, and tags work great for that. And so I continue to encourage you to use that. The next thing is custom fields, which we've been talking about. And custom fields are great for standardization of the data, saying this is the field that we want to track and here are the ways that we want to track it. And then reporting based on that, like it's one place, one data, one location, and you can talk about it. And so that's where things like employment or job description would be a great one, job title. You want to group people by skills and abilities, but if you want just one place that defines their title, you put it in there as the text field. It's also very good for exclusions, and pardon my wording if it's not the best way to say that, but what it means is if you're trying to say, show me everyone who I don't know what their job is, you can't do that with tags unless you go and select every single tag to say, not this one and not that one, and that's very time consuming and very inconsistent over time. And so this allows you to say, show me everyone whose job field is blank. And so that's really good, and I think you'll find a lot of value in doing that with custom fields. The next thing is status change notes, and we'll look at this in a minute, but now you can go in, and if you say here's a status, so somebody was received by baptism, you can go up into the notes for baptism and put, who did the baptism, at what church, and the like. So they're informational, they're event specific, they're not reportable, you can't group people by them, and for many congregations that is just fine. So that is what status change notes are, and we'll look at that in a second. And the last one was just notes. Notes are good for things that you want permissions on, that you don't want everybody to see. They're also good for long format, so if you wanted to put a paragraph in there, that's the place to do it. You would not want to put a paragraph for a tag because that's going to show up in a lot of different places. So you've got 4 key things there for custom information that you have. And keep in mind that's custom. We didn't even list all the other data fields for things that are not custom, like birthday or spouse. All right, so we're going to switch back over to Church360 Members now. And we're going to take a look at a few of these things. So first off, we're going to go up here into the settings cog and go down to general settings. And we've cleaned that up a little bit. It may look a little bit different to you. If you scroll down here to the bottom, you'll see custom fields. And we've added 5 custom fields here. I will note that there is a maximum of 5 fields right now. And the reason for that is usability. If you added 100 fields, it would go really slow as it tries to pull that every time you open up a person record. And based on what we've seen in our research and looking at our Shepherd Staff customers, 5 fields should be more than enough for most congregations. Now, if it's not enough for you, if you've got more that you want to do, please send that to us. We know that we can never retract how many it is, and we want to make sure that we're doing a nice level of enough fields but enough responsiveness and timeliness with the application. So that's where we're starting right now. You can make fields inactive, so if you have a field and decide you don't want to use it anymore, you don't want to lose that data, you can inactivate the field. So that's something there. So here we go. We've got a few things here, and in fact, I'll show you that inactive state right now, or deactivate. So now I can go here and add a field, and this is where I would put the name. And I'm just going to do test field for right now because I'm not feeling very creative. You can go down here and select text, which just says, okay, that's a text. You select date. It just tells you that's the date. If you select list, it'll drop down this extra box, and you'll put 1 option per line. So you'll see here under Elder territory, I've got Elder Jones, Elder Smith, Elder Williams. That's how you do it, and you can copy and paste that from Word or Excel and drop it in there. They just have to be on a separate line. And that's really good for data standardization. So you probably wouldn't want to do a drop-down list for a confirmation verse if you allow your confirmants to choose any verse in the Bible. But if you have a predefined list of confirmation verses that you allow, and maybe that's for things like certificates, I know at my congregation that's how that works, you could then put in your predefined list of confirmation verses. And so how you use it really depends on your needs. And it'll be good to talk with the church staff, whoever else is using this, to kind of decide what's best. The last thing on here is this visible to, and so you can pick which permission roles it's visible to. And like I said, permission roles open up a lot of opportunities for us. This was one of them. If there's sensitive data that you want to put in here and you only want people with the permission roles of pastor to see it, that's where you do that. And so that's why this can be better than tags and better than the other options that we have there for notes. You can say only this group has it visible to them. All right, last thing I want to put on this, show this here. I've only got a few examples today, but you can see how many people have that. And so if you click on that, it takes you to the people view where it shows you how it's filtered the list. So that's really handy. Through this smart group, this is what we call custom smart group. You can always go in and, let's see, here you go, baptized teen males in August. That's an interesting smart group, but it's very specific, and it looks like we have no one in there. But you can see now that your custom fields are part of your smart group options, which is very handy. So I'm going to go back, and we're just going to click on people, and I'm going to click on the members group. If you haven't noticed that, we now have another default view where it's only members as opposed to everyone, and that will exclude deceased people. So we're going to click on Dave Abbott, our good friend that we often use in these training webinars. And we'll show here, here's the tags. We moved the tags up a little bit to make some room for these custom fields. And the custom fields fall right below these dates right here. So above these reporting options, below these dates, and you can see here that there is the confirmation verse, the elder territory. So you click on that, that's the text field. You click on the elder group, that's the drop-down list. You click on the first visit date, and there's the date. So you have that there. And then we'll take a look here at the special, the status change notes. You can see up here that David was received by baptism. And it says on June 4th, 2015, he was baptized by Pastor Smith at St. Matthew Lutheran Church in Chicago, Illinois. So if you wanted to put things like, and his verse was John 3:16, you could say that too. That allows you to store that data that's important to you without using up one of the custom fields. And really, it's just for informational sake. I don't think anybody's really going to be needing to report on Pastor Smith at St. Matthew Lutheran Church in Chicago, Illinois, unless they are actually at St. Matthew Lutheran Church, so they want to see who Pastor Smith baptized them. So there's that. Down here in the notes, you can see that this is now changed to permission roles. Not much different than permission groups, but it has a little bit different logic behind it. All right, so that is the end of the presentation today. I ran a little bit longer than I expected. We're at 10:27, so we've got a couple minutes for questions. And let's see here. There's the first question: Is there a way to mass add all members to have access as members? That question is from Sharon, and Sharon, I'm sorry to say that there's not at this time. So you do have to add them manually. We're considering the different options for that, and we'd love to hear your feedback on the different use cases. We have another application called Church360 Unite, which is really, it's your church website, but it's also your online communication center for your church. And you can see that, you can see your member directory there, find out people's contact information. And we found that that has been a better option for people who want to have an online directory, which is often the reason for wanting to add everybody to Church360 Members. Now, there are a lot of good reasons to add all your members to Church360 Members, and we are happy to consider those things. It's one of the things that's on our roadmap for discussion. There's a few other things that we hear more frequently, and so we have not made a decision on that yet. So the fact that you asked about this question is going to be added to our feedback. All right, next question. How do you delete roles if you no longer wish to have one assigned to the user? Well, the first thing you'll have to do is remove the members from the roles, or remove the role from the members. And then you can go here under roles, and you just click this. For administrator, you can't, like elders, if you wanted to remove elders, you'd click that and then go to delete. So it's pretty straightforward with that. Next question. How do you remove a role from a user if you no longer wish to have them to have those permissions? Great question. Go back here to login, and let's go to the one we added here. If you see that you've got member and volunteer and you just want them to be a member, you can click in here and click backspace. Oops, I clicked it twice. And we'll type in member. So if you have two in here and you want to go delete the first one, you hit the arrow pad and highlight the one you want, and then you can just hit delete or erase, and then you save that. All right, can you assign multiple roles to visible to in custom fields? No, you cannot. So the reason for that is to think, well, this role should be at a minimum available for all the church staff. So you look at that kind of hierarchy that we talked about before, where it's member, staff, pastor, and say, at what level can they see that? And you say, okay, well, that's only the pastor, or, well, everybody in the church staff can see that, but not the members. And so you kind of define that hierarchy and put it in place there. All right, and then I think I've got time for one more question. Let's see. Do administrators have to add members to Church360, or can they request access? Administrators do have to add them to Church360. So we don't have really a public-facing side of Church360 members other than the login screen. Most church members don't know about it, that it exists, until the church office tells them, and so we've put that responsibility in the hands of the administrators. So I do have one more question, and it's a perfect lead into what we're talking about next. So the question says, will this presentation be recorded and available later on? Absolutely it will be. So let me go ahead and switch back to my PowerPoint slideshow, and I'll wait for that to show up for you. Oops. There we go. All right, that was what we talked about last. We went into question and answers. We've got that covered. Here's my contact information again, peter.frank@cph.org, and my phone number. You can also contact our support team, support@cts.cph.org, and there's our phone number. But I want to mention something here. We have a new blog, our product updates blog, which you may have already been to if you referenced, if you saw that reference in the email for signing up for this webinar. And we will be posting things like our recordings on there, or at least having the link to our YouTube channel. And that's the best place to go to find out new information. So I want to show you one thing with that. Let's go ahead and click on it. And I will go back to Chrome for you to see it. There we go. If you go to our blog, which is just concordiatechnology.org, and then you can go to products and Church360, click on our blog here. We do have a couple other blogs related to our other products, or just technology in your ministry. You'll see the permission roles and custom fields here and some of the details I described. From here you can go and you can sign up and subscribe to email updates and choose how frequently you want to get those updates. Now, we're generally only posting about on a weekly basis, sometimes less than that, occasionally more. And if you choose something other than instant, it will compile all the ones that you have not yet seen and send it to you. So if you only want to get a monthly email about product updates, just select monthly and subscribe. But I do highly encourage you to subscribe to that. For now, we're going to continue to email all of our customers about these training opportunities as they come up. But eventually we'll move away from that and just have it to those who've subscribed to updates so that we don't bother anyone. So please, if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and subscribe to that. You can then go up here, and if you don't see our video up there, you can click in this button. That'll take you to our YouTube channel. It's the little play button up in the top. But we are 3 minutes past time, so I apologize for that. I do thank you very much for attending today. If you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to email me. Otherwise, thank you for attending, and have a great day.